so we've talked about Ballerina Farm before. Her name is Hannah Nealman, but if you need a refresher, she is a mom of 8 children. She is a pageant queen. She is a professionally trained ballerina, and she also runs a media powerhouse that is entirely based on her lifestyle brand. She runs this 300-acre farm in Utah with her husband. They're Mormon. They live this trad lifestyle, and it's incredibly popular. They're making tons of money off of it. Unfortunately, the Times just published a hit piece about Ballerina Farm, and it was not charitable, to say the least.
As hit pieces usually aren't.
Yeah, this is what journalists do. You invite them into your home, you answer their questions, they're perfectly nice to your face.
They stab you in the back.
And then they stab you in the back. They screw you over, and they write something to make it seem like there's something sinister about you, your marriage, your family, your lifestyle, etc. It's titled, "Meet the Queen of the Trad Wives and Her 8 Children." Hannah Nealman, known to her 9 million followers as Ballerina Farm, milks cows, gives birth without pain relief, and breastfeeds at beauty pageants. Is this an empowering new model of womanhood or a hammer blow for feminism?
What?
Wah, wah, wah.
So we already know where this is going.
So she's this super powerful woman who has like a whole media empire, and
Yes.
somehow, because her political views do not align with progressivism, it is a blow to feminism.
It's
Not
not
even her
even just her
political
political
views.
views.
It's
It's
just-
just
it's
her
the life she-
existence
her like
offends people.
lifestyle is offensive.
Yeah, her existence offends people. It causes people to have full-on meltdowns. So they started off by talking about Pageant Gate.
Would you imagine them doing this to like Elton John back in the day? He's a world-renowned musician. He's all these things, but he's also gay, and maybe that's you know what I mean? Like
Right.
they're taking a choice you make, a lifestyle choice of your own, and they're framing it in the most uncharitable way possible.
Yeah, exactly.
And he had 2 kids too, didn't he? Elton John.
Mm-hmm.
They like
So,
did they adopt?
I think I just saw a
children, or-
picture like he was out in public with them recently.
Yeah.
I think the last time we talked about Hannah Nealman was because she won a pageant when she was 12 days postpartum, which is an insane accomplishment in its own right. But this became known as Pageant Gate because so many people went berserk over it. The reactions were insane. And about Pageant Gate, they said, was this the ultimate act of empowerment, Hannah Nealman doing what she wanted, or the ultimate demonstration of oppression, her tender body encased in sequins? Hannah, whether she liked it or not, was declared a leader of a new and controversial group on the internet, the Trad Wives. Nealman is the most well-known trad wife, despite having never attached herself to the movement or even used the term. So they asked Hannah Nealman how she feels about being attached to this trad wife phenomenon. And she noted that her husband, Daniel, replied to the question first.
Of course, because he's oppressing her by speaking for her
Yes,
marriage.
exactly. He said, "We were already together doing what we were doing, and then trad wife came along. We can't help it. This is what we are. If we're trad dad, trad wife, so be it." And Hannah said, "I don't necessarily identify with it because we're traditional in the sense that it's a man and a woman, we have children, but I do feel like we're paving a lot of paths that haven't been paved before. So for me to have the label of a traditional woman, I don't know if I identify with that."
I mean, it is hard to call it traditional when she's part of a family that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's a gap there.
Exactly, but the
Yeah, that makes
labels are
sense.
all coming from people who are observing it from the outside.
Yeah.
She never, emblazoned her own brand with trad lifestyle. She's just her.
There's a fetishistic nature around the term now.
Yeah,
Around the
exactly. But
trad-
that's
the
not
trad
her
thing.
fault,
No.
They noted this is the biggest paradox. Selling the life of a stay-at-home mother, Hannah Nealman and other trad wives have created high-earning jobs. They're being paid to act out a fantasy. It is her real life, so I wouldn't call it a fantasy.
There's a
but-
20 there real quick.
Award-winning blank said Tradwife is viewed as something deserving of an award rather than what has always existed in human history. It's not award-worthy. I would know.
It's also because it's the exception now and not the rule because everybody has to work now. So the idea of the traditional wife is not what it used to be.
No, that's true. I mean, so many wives or, dads or whatever, everybody works from home.
Yep.
So it's like you can try and raise your kids at the same time. I think what happens too is everything gets a little bit of a short shrift when you're trying to do all the things at the exact same time. I was just thinking how tough it would be to be one of the kids in this family to like try and live up to these expectations, of being like 12 days postpartum and suddenly you're able to wear skin tight jeans.
Yep.
My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, she's setting a high standard, which
very high standards.
It's going to make people angry.
Yeah, I mean, they've got antique wooden counters stacked with Le Creuset pans and mismatched pottery. All that stuff is really expensive. I recently was looking at a Creuset pan that I wanted, and I was like, I've literally wanted this pan for 15 years.
We should
I haven't
provide some context here. They are billionaires.
Right.
So Hannah Nealman, she also comes from a big Mormon family, as does her husband, but her husband is a trust fund baby, essentially. His dad created airline businesses. He is inheriting the JetBlue fortune. He is a billionaire. So that should be mentioned. They have this lifestyle because it is made possible by this massive fortune, and they have tons of full-time staff to keep it running. They sell products. It's not just a self-sufficient homestead in the middle of nowhere where they aren't associating with the public. Like, this is what they do.
Because Mary would want to be nowhere near there if it was just a homestead. Well, I was reliably told on Twitter the other day.
It's aspirational for some people. Okay, and that's why it makes people so angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, they went further, asking if the husband is the head of their household. And Daniel, her husband, said, no, we're co-CEOs. Hannah agreed with that statement. They're not exactly the 1950s ideal housewife lifestyle where the husband comes home and beats his wife for burning dinner. That's not really what we're talking about here. This is a whole different breed.
Also, they said they're CEOs of their family.
And yes, in the family.
That's so gross.
It's a very Mormon.
I don't like it.
It's a very Mormon situation that we're looking at. It should be noted that they're Mormon because Nara Smith is another example of this. She makes all of these videos where she makes chewing gum from scratch and all of these absurd things. She's also Mormon, and her husband is this supermodel, Lucky Blue Smith, and they live this very idyllic lifestyle that makes everyone lose their minds.
You should share a couple more of the more condescending editorializations from the reporter.
So the reporter also asked Hannah Nealman if she identifies as a feminist. And she responded, there are so many different ways you could take that word. I don't even know what feminism means anymore. She feels as though she's become politicized by other people. Quote, we try so hard to be neutral and be ourselves, and people put a label on everything. This is just our normal life. I think it's kind of disingenuous to say that your life is normal, but I get what she's trying to say.
She's saying it's our normal life.
This is our life.
It's relative. Yes. It's normal to me. It doesn't mean it's going to be normal to you. Your decision to editorialize and label my life has nothing to do with me.
But what the reporter was trying to get to is an admission that Hannah Nealman lives this stay-at-home mom lifestyle because her husband has forced her into it. That's what they wanted out of this piece.
Because what they'd rather you do is give your kids to the state for 8 to 10 hours a day, even though you can afford to pay for the best childcare. They're actually offended by the idea that you would want to be home with your kids.
Well, they also framed the trad wife phenomenon as a pushback to the fourth wave feminist girl boss movement. They admitted that has its own pitfalls, but some women like Hannah Nealman find a way to perfectly blend the two in a way that they're happy with.
It's Sex in the City feminism versus
versus Utah mountain acreage life. So the reporter says, when we get a moment alone, I ask her if this was what she always wanted.
Even just the idea of framing it as when I got a moment alone is supposed to denote the idea that she had to wait for the husband to be out of the room to ask the question because he's somehow lording over her.
Right. So her husband is tending to the animals. The reporter asks her, was this what she always wanted? And she said, no, my goal was New York City. I left home at 17 and I was so excited to get there. I loved that energy and I was going to be a ballerina. I was a good ballerina. but I knew that when I started to have kids, my life would start to look different. And I actually saw that screenshot from the article getting posted on Twitter with women saying it's heart-wrenching and tragic that she wasn't able to pursue her dream of being a ballet dancer professionally because of her husband.
No, she made a decision
Yeah,
and made a
that's what it
value
sounds like.
judgment. Again, this is that saying that women will do anything except take responsibility for their own actions. Or in this case, these women will do anything except let her take responsibility for her own actions.
Yeah, so I actually quote tweeted someone who posted that screenshot, and I said, so a woman has complicated feelings about the sacrifices she's made for her family, and the nuanced feminist take is she would be happy if she got to go clubbing in New York City. Like, they don't particularly respect her dream of being a ballet dancer. They just are glad that it doesn't involve being married. Like, it has nothing to do with her passion for dancing. It's just wherever you are, you shouldn't be at home with your kids. It doesn't really matter what your dreams are as long as they don't involve a man.
It's also just a product of telling people that they can have it all. Well, you can't have it all in life.
Yeah,
That's
and I
not
think
the way
Hannah
it works.
Nealman is admitting that publicly, and that's what they hate to see.
By having to make a painful decision proves that you can't just have it all.
She continued saying, our first few years of marriage were really hard. We sacrificed a lot, but we did have this vision, this dream, and Daniel interrupts. He said, we still do. What kind of sacrifices, I ask her. Well, I gave up dance, which was hard. You give up a piece of yourself. And Daniel gave up his career ambitions. And that was the start of their dream to have this homesteading lifestyle.
What they want you to know is that the dream that she gave up is far more important than the dream he gave up. That's
Right.
what she's saying.
Well, what they also want you to know is that the dream they constructed together is in some way inferior to the dreams that they had on their own, which
Because
it
it's
isn't.
his idea somehow more inherently
Right,
than
but I mean,
hers.
when you isn't that what we learn about marriage? You know, when you come together in a marriage. I mean, it's even in the Bible. What does it say? Like, the man leaves his parents and cleaves to his wife. That's the idea, is that you come up with a new idea together.
Right.
Because
Right.
more important than your ideas on your own is being together. So then you come up with a new plan for your life where you can facilitate the most important part, being together, and still do stuff that you both love. You
Yeah,
know?
I think
it's a much, I mean, that's the idea.
The framework that's being proposed as the ideal marriage now is two individuals partnering to help each other pursue their individual dreams.
Yeah, I don't
instead
like
of
that
having
as
one
much.
that works jointly.
I think it's better if you have even if you have separate goals, like the point of marriage, or maybe not the point of marriage, but like the way to keep your marriage and keep your relationship is you have to learn to grow together. You know, you have to, if you feel yourself veering on separate paths, you know, you have to be like, oh, do we want to, hey over there, like, do we want to go these separate directions, or would we rather bring our paths back together? How can we do that? You know, these are the things that I'm interested in. These are the things I'm interested in. Let's figure out where we match and pursue those together.
The media would like you to not do any of that. They'd like you to just get divorced and go
Yeah, but the
selfishly
media
pursue
doesn't-
your interests on your own.
The media
Yeah.
doesn't want you to be happy.
I'm sure if Hannah Nealman divorced her husband and then wrote a memoir about how he made her into a trad wife slave, that would sell like gangbusters.
Sure,
but
and
that's
she'd
not
do like an OnlyFans trad wife
Yeah.
thing.
They do want you to be happy on, antidepressants, living in the city by yourself.
Right, and because if you're too happy, you're not going to read media. You're not going to tune in
Right.
as much.
Countless times in this article, the journalist Megan Agnew basically portrays Hannah's husband as monopolizing her time, keeping her from conducting the interview on her own, and ultimately erasing her individuality as a person. The journalist threw shade at the fact that they don't have TVs, iPads, or phones in the house for the kids, the fact that they don't hire nannies, the fact that Hannah Nealman prefers to give birth at home without pain medication, the fact that she doesn't use birth control to plan out her pregnancies, all the while saying that this was all her husband's idea. She ultimately leads the reader to believe that all of these decisions are due to the influence of Hannah's husband rather than joint decisions that they make as spouses. And toward the end of the article, the journalist writes, I can't get an answer out of Hannah Nealman without her being corrected, interrupted, or answered for by either her husband or a child. Usually I'm doing battle with Hollywood publicists. Today I am up against an army of toddlers who all want their mom and a husband who thinks he knows better. That was how they ended the article. And now people are posting this as evidence of what they wanted to know all along about Ballerina Farm. That in reality, this isn't the dreamy, idyllic lifestyle that you see on Instagram. It's actually a tragedy where she has been turned into a robot slave who acquiesces to her husband's will in all things, and that all of this was his ideal life. This was all his goal, and it had nothing to do with her, and that she's been reduced down to nothing. That's what they wanted out of this, and that's what they got.
Yeah, unfortunately, she probably doesn't know the extent of just how corrupt and biased the media is, so she was probably blindsided by this.
Yeah, agreeing to do this interview in the first place was a mistake on her part, because she probably had nothing but positive interactions with the journalist.
Oh, I'd love to meet you and meet your family.
Until the article
comes out. Your husband sounds so great.
You find out what their true intentions were all along, and it was fully a hit piece. Yeah. And it's very dishonest. And I mean, people interrupt each other. You can write and editorialize to, characterize anything you want, really.
Also, isn't it kind of amazing, though? She did perform as a ballerina. There's like photos in this article where she's performing in China, and she got to get married and fall in love, and she gets to be a mom. Like, that's pretty cool. I mean, you can have it all. You just can't have it all at once. Why can you have it all at once?
Right.
You can't be a ballerina and nurse your children at the exact same moment. You're going to have to, and she got to do everything.
There were some weird things that were mentioned in the article, like her husband said that sometimes Hannah gets so exhausted from living this life that she has to be bedridden for a week at a time. That doesn't seem normal. No. Maybe that would call for, hiring some help for childcare. But, other than that, a lot of this was extrapolating a message that a lot of people wanted to hear, which is, I feel jealous of this person for the money they have, for the beauty she has, and all of her accomplishments. And I want to take them down a peg. That's what a lot of people wanted to hear about her.
Reinforces their worldview.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's really unfortunate. I hope that she speaks out and says hey, I know this journalist was trying to portray my marriage as this horrible thing, but that's actually not true.
Don't even dignify it with a response. Just move on with your life. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.